Well, there's a little bit of track packing there just to smooth its path. There was a little click. Wasn't so prevalent on reverse, but on forward there was a click every motion. So I figured it had to be something fouling, which sure enough it was. The problem I had was getting it to go slow enough past me to try and spot what it was. I'm still using this old HM 3000. I think it needs a bit of contact cleaner in the pots. If I just apply a little bit of brake, there's a little speed. I'm applying the brakes and the speed goes up. So there's clearly a bit of muck on the track inside it. So there's this tiny little piece here. I don't know. You can't even see it in the dark, like a little air blow-off valve or something. The top of the rod was just clicking on it, so I've bent it up. Problem solved. It seems to be running quite smooth. Not too noisy. A little bit of motion from the, and surprisingly, even though the track's not very clean, and I did come down here to retrieve the rubber so that I can work on the other layout in the garage, and I don't know where it is because I put it back in here. Could be underneath the boxes I've just got out, I don't know. I decided to look for it after I've put all the crap in the way. So this was the first one out because I've got a couple of DC locos to test. Which was just as well because I think I've waited so long that I've passed my window of return on this anyway. But it seems to be working just fine. It does need a physical clean. There's a little bit of grime building up, but I think it's been more of a probably sat in the sidings than done a lot of work. The wheels are fairly good. But there are sort of like another thing that you turn down that little burst apart, but I think it's this auto par regulator thing, which is like the brake simulator on a Gauge Master. And then you've got the momentum as well that you can adjust to slow it down over a period of time. If we just run straight DC without any trickery. Obviously being on DC, there's a certain voltage at which it will move, which isn't ultra realistic. You do get a little bit better slow start on the brake simulator with inertia control like you do on the Gauge Master, but other than that it seems to be okay. Now we got rid of the ticking, and that's about as slow as I can probably get it before it starts to stall, bearing in mind the wheels ain't clean, the contactors ain't clean, and the track certainly ain't clean. And we're now about to go over a Hornby Electro Frog point, which it has passed, even though there ain't a spring in that one. That's broken. So, enough waffle, let's get on with the next bit. So if we use the regulator instead this time, what do we got now? A nice Akira scale, permanent way coach. And to complement that, the EFE rail yob crane, which is very nice, but I think overpriced for what it is. It's nicely free running. It did zoom off in that direction, as there is a slight lean on the board. But yeah. Well, I don't know whether this Walther's tank car doesn't quite like 21-inch, or whatever our curves are. They're not 22. This back wheel truck keeps lifting. But this is a new edition. It's a -9 in heritage and Roundhouse model, which I suppose is sort of equivalent to our Hornby Railroad. It's the basic entry of their brand. It's not like the Genesis, which has probably got better lighting functions and more detail. But it don't seem too bad. I didn't pay a lot for it. I think £65–70. It's nice and quiet. Didn't say whether it was chipped or not. It's running on DC at the minute. It didn't like the modulation auto power regulator. But other than that, it's running quite nice. But you can see that wheel's just skipped again. And I think it's the usual case. You can see the coupling. Obviously it's hooked out now, but the way American design for the coupler is, the flange of the wheel fouls. Although normally these third radius curves are just about getawayable, but maybe the tolerance is slightly less on these. So it might need a little modification. Could be the back-to-backs as well. They might be nipped in a little bit too much. But obviously this is all stuff I've got to iron out when I get the big layout done, and take into consideration some of the curves that the US rolling stock needs. But this is another little acquisition just to test out. Excuse the creaky seat. The only thing wrong with it, I think they've spilt something on it at some time. The little flash, the black paint there is obviously had something that has reacted, and the paint started to dissolve into the red. But a little bit of subtle weathering will soon sort that out. But other than that, it seems quite nice. It's running okay. So we'll have to re-rig now for DCC. So again, this is Bachmann's budget range in the US. I guess they're equivalent to the railroad spec. We don't in the UK, or Bachmann Europe don't really have a economy range, let's call it. They do have older locomotives from older tooling, but they still charge a premium rate for it until they retool it and then put the price up. This is I think the second batch of these locos. I think the first ones were a bit problematic. They didn't have ditch lights. This one has. They just had plastic fake ones. And I think there was some issues with the mountings, because the actual body of the loco would rock around and tilt, I think, in some severe cases. Just sort of basic Chinese crap quality, where this one does seem to be a bit better. The fit and finish looks okay. We've got the paintwork's reasonable, and this one is solid, doesn't wobble. And it does have the soundtracks. I don't know what they call it, the economy sound. I haven't tried it. It's sort of like our basic old Bachmann's over the UK. Only 8 functions. Obviously ours were ESU version 3s and 3.5s. So we've got lighted number board if applicable, bell, air horn, short whistle. I think the ditch lights automatically come on with the horn, things like that. But it's not too bad, and it was, let me just mute it down, even cheaper than the Roundhouse. I bought this for £70, but because I went through the app, they were pushing the use of the app again and doing another £5 off. So I got a sound loco for £65. I don't think you can grumble at that, even if it is the lower end of the world of sound. Certainly it's sort of better than our Hornby stuff of the time. So yeah, out of the box, first time I've tried it. The gears are binding on this third radius again, which isn't uncommon with a lot of locos, particularly the American ones, as well. There is an inch difference in the radius, which does seem to make a difference with some. They will run it, but you can hear, you know, obviously the flanges are on the limit, and they do slow down on the corners. But yeah, it seems okay. You know, it's got separately fitted wire handrails. The paint hasn't peeled off the yellow high-vis handrails yet. Obviously, it's got the crappy couplings on it, I think, the plastic ones. So they might get an upgrade to KD. Same problem with the Roundhouse. That's got some really awful ones on it. I don't know what they are, but they're even worse than these. And I just tried it on here and it buzzed, so it is obviously DC. It's not fitted with a chip, so we do have to put a chip in that one. I'm not sure whether it's an 8 or a 21 pin. And obviously this one's got the economy sound in it, so it'll do. The reason I was after, I wanted a heritage unit. I did quite fancy the other variation of this sort of red and silvery type one, and this sort of came up within a week of me buying the other one at, again, such a good price it was hard to refuse. And I didn't pay 80 for that one. So it was a case of, oh, well, you know, it's a bit like buses. You wait around for ages and then two turn up at the same time. And they were reasonable prices. So, and I only want them to, you know, either make up a short train or be in a consist. So, you know, a DPU or something. As long as they all run in a consist relatively well. That will have to be dealt with down the line. So for now, I'm going to play with this off cam because I'm running out of battery, and we've got two more in those boxes there, but they are not Hellion. Well, as I said, there wasn't a Hellion. It's from a different part of the world. I think Sparky might like this one. This is an SD60. They don't have these now, but as I'm not modelling a specific period in time, I'm not too worried. And again, they were quite a good price. Well, I think they were. They are the heaviest locos I own. They are heavier than the Bachmann or the Roundhouse, and as far as I know, my other American locos, and definitely they come in heavier than an Akira scale class 37, and they're not as big. They are, I think, 725 grams. Now these come from the same guy I've bought a lot of the weathered Norfolk and Southern Top Gons and cool gondolas from, and that rather nice centre beam that was weathered. But I didn't just buy the one. I haven't got the other one on the track yet, but we do have another one. These are Proto 2000, so you sort of assemble them yourself, and they must pretty much be all metal. So this is literally my first, and they are DC fitted, and that's speed step 4, and running quite nicely. It's already negotiated the dreaded Hornby turnout, and as I said, they came DC fitted. So is the other one. I think the other one is 6775. Again, then quite nicely. So these aren't modern locos, but separately fitted handrails, and grab irons. Guy's done a nice sort of subtle weathering job on them. So I'll get the other one on track and we'll have a look. Well, I think he speed matched these because that's full tilt. Once you get above about 17, 18 on the speed, anything between 18 and 28 does nothing. I know these are lower geared if they're the earlier variant. I think the later versions had a different gear ratio in them, but as they're going to be going low and slow on a coal train, I'm not too fussed. This one's a bit noisier. It's sort of almost like the wheel flange on a rail loco when you hear it going on a bend and it's making that flange squeal noise. You can hear it sort of grating. I don't think it's a gear train thing. But the other one did start to get to that point where it was dry and it was gonna start squealing, so I think these probably need a service. But they're looking reasonable, you know. Looking at the wheels, they've worked, but they're not worn out, you know. But there is quite a low profile flange on these as well. And the other thing is, if he's got the back-to-back slightly wide, they won't like this track anyway. And again, we're going back to the curvature of this being 21-inch curve, not a 22, which is normally the minimum they'll run on. Because over here you've got first, second and third, which I think is 16, 18 and 21, something like that. Because obviously this being a 4 foot wide board, fourth radius would be off the edge. I think this is a 4 foot board. I don't think I cut it down for me son when I made it. I know it was short to fit under the bed or behind the bed, but it was designed to fit ironically in my room where I am now. But yes, it's grinding a bit on the curves, but also on that one does seem tight, that far end down there, because a lot of even the English locos bind on that a little bit. So whether it's a bit of Hornbyitis with their track geometry, but they might run nicer on the other layer if I can square it all up and sort it out. We've got half of it sort of wired up. It was a bit of an oddball. I'll probably cover it on the next live I do, but I sort of made a bit of headway while we was watching Mark's Donny Gouldad's live stream. But yeah, it's a bit odd how he's wired it, or not wired it as the case may be. So that's it. Well, that was an abrupt stop, wasn't it? Step 3, and she was you can hear it now. Don't even need flange squeal from the sound effects. You've got this with them. So these are basic chip. They've only got a lighting function, nothing else. As far as I'm aware, there was nothing in the description. So I will pack them back up in that was all the bubble wrap and all that to protect them. That one come in a jiffy bag. Ironic, isn't it? Right, catch you on my next weekly.